Yes, welcome into Sports Bet. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy, SBRpicks.com. Monday, April 9th, 3 days left in the regular season. And the association big game breakdown, two good ones, Thunder and the Heat, and Portland and the Nuggets. And we'll turn on the shot clock before we get out of here. We'll recap win totals in the NHL in a second. It's an award-winning edition of Bad Beats, Bad Bets, Bad for the Books. We start with the Masters. Terrific tournament. Great drama on Sunday. Patrick Reed, your winner, as high as 55-1, closed at 40-1 here in Vegas. Nobody likes him. You saw that by the subdued applause when he won the Masters. He shoots 15 under and wins. Spieth almost pulled off the greatest comeback in Masters history, and then Fowler made the late push as well. If Reed doesn't make that last putt, we go to a playoff. You thought Rory was going to win. He fell apart. And the one thing we knew going in, Tiger Woods wouldn't contend, and Tiger was a no-show.
Yeah, we certainly got that one right. Reed, obviously, a big payday for those of you who had him. From what I was hearing around town here in Vegas, it wasn't like the books had a ton of liability on Patrick Reed. And as you mentioned, McIlroy, you look at the head-to-heads. We talked about the head-to-head matchups as being the best way to attack the Masters. McIlroy was, what, a $1.65 favorite at the Open against Reed, and he was bet up to -$2 before he closed with the 74 on Sunday. And I got something right with the shot clock. We talked about how Tiger was going to do. I said he'll struggle to make the cut. He'll be lucky to make the cut. And he played respectable on Sunday. He got back to even par, but he was never in contention. And yes, He barely made the cut. Tiger's a big headline, but on the course, largely a non-factor.
No. It's over, and it's been over. He's 42 years old. It's a young man's game. All these guys who are on the leaderboard at the top, they're all in their 20s. And this guy's 42. He played well for 9 holes on the back 9 yesterday. That was it. You're right. It was over Thursday, and he barely made the cut. Winner play of the day. How about under 66, huh? There was a ton of 65s in Spieth's round yesterday as well. A couple 66s in there as well. The hole-in-one cashed for the third year in a row. Charlie Hoffman puts one in, plus $1.15 on 16 as well. Here we go with the bad beats. How about the 76ers? My God, it was bad enough Friday, right? Laying 4. They're up 30 with a minute left until half, and up 25 at the half, and they won by 2. Well, they're up 13. They're laying 13 against the Mavs. They're up 20 with 2 minutes. It's a gentleman's agreement. If I dribble it out, you're supposed to dribble it out, Dallas. The last 2 trips, Philly dribbles it out. Harrison Barnes lays it in twice, puts it on 12 with 10 seconds left. That was the ball game. Sixers win by 12.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really call it a moose when you're laying double digits in the NBA, but this one was pretty freaking bad for Philly backers. Again, they're minus 13. You say minus 12.5 in a lot of shops. You're up 20 with 2.5 left. You're up 16 with a minute left. It's hard to lose those bets. It really is. And when you lose it because your team dribbles out and the opposing team gets 2 uncontested looks at the hoop, yeah, Harrison Barnes got Dallas the money. If you had Philly, this moose is for you, my friends. That was a tough beat.
Yeah. Yes, this one's the bullpen shenanigans every day in Major League Baseball. How about the Rays plus 190, bet down to 175? Not only was it 7-2 in the bottom of the 8th, there's 2 outs with a guy on. Then all hell breaks loose, and the Red Sox win 8-7. They've won 8 in a row.
Yeah, and of course, when you see the big dogs, we're going to talk about big dogs in the bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books, probably more than big favorites, because the big dogs, it seems like they're so tantalizingly close, and then it all falls apart. That's what Tampa, plus 190, nice payday. Yeah, the Rays are supposed to win that game. Oops, 7-2 lead. They lose the game 8-7.
Yeah. Supposed to win this too. Royals plus the run and a half. They led 1-0 in the bottom of the 8th. Indians tie it, no big deal. The only way you can lose is a walk-off home run with a guy on or 2 guys on, and that happened. Walk-off for Gomes, 3-1 Indians. Horrible if you had the Royals.
Yeah, Kansas City plus 1.5. Let's be, Kansas. So someone's going to win or lose that game. So when you score 1 run, it's not like your offense did anything right, but when you're losing in the 9th inning, they never trailed for a pitch in the game. You're plus 1.5, and they never trailed for a pitch until the 2-run home run for Gomes. Yeah, that's a tough one for KC. Plus 1.5 backers. Right side, wrong result.
Bad bets. Brewers took money. They lost at home against the Cubs and were shut out. Also, the White Sox were $1.45 up to 170. They were shut out. And in hockey, a makeup game. The Bruins were playing for the 1 seed from 240 up to 340. They lost at home against the Panthers 4-2.
Yeah, who wants the 1 seed? You know, in the NHL, seeding and home ice means so much less than it does, say, in a sport like the NBA. But I'm going to go back to the Cubs, man. There's like money coming in against the Cubs on the reg so far this season. And fading Jose Quintana, he might be the best starter the Cubs have. He looks like the ace of that staff to me. I'm very surprised to see the money come in on Milwaukee yesterday, as much as it did, obviously, the Cubs. Another right side cash.
Here we go. Bad for the books. Magic plus 13 down to 10.5. It fell 11. Horrible landing spot. No DeRozan or Valanciunas. And the Jazz from 5.5, from 5 to 9.5. They couldn't get any Laker money as the Jazz covered.
Yeah. So the Magic, that late three-pointer, meaningless. No, not so meaningless. Jonia hits the three that allows the game to fall 11, lands right in the middle, plus 13 open, plus 10.5 close, as you mentioned. All of the money coming after Toronto announced that Valanciunas and DeRozan will be sitting. And of course, Van Vliet got hurt in that ball game as well. There's talk that Kyle Lowry could sit tonight. Be aware if you're going to be involved in the Raptors game on Monday at Detroit. And of course, the Jazz. I mean, this game was a freaking disaster for the books. The Jazz-Lakers game, nothing but Utah. I didn't see any buyback, and it just kept coming right until tip-off. Jazz, they're playing good basketball right now. They're the scary team that no one's talking about in the West, although everyone's getting talked about in the West. This is a wild playoff chase.
Hawks took money, 10.5 down to 9, beat the Celtics outright by 6 on the road. The Orioles from 185 down to 160. They won in extra innings. Stanton with the 5 strikeout game again. And the Dodgers from $2 up to 240. They finally won a game for Kershaw this year. They couldn't give him any support. 1-0 in the bottom of the 7th. He gives up a run, but they win in extra innings.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. The Dogs trying to tank. Atlanta's trying to tank against Boston. But it's hard to tank when the favorite cares less than you do. Hawks get the money. Hawks take the money. That was not a good result for the house. And that the Yankees, where they sit, 3 starters. Yesterday, a couple of infielders and the catcher sitting. All the money came on Baltimore as a result. The Orioles win that one. And, of course, Kershaw, and you talk about his first win of the season. Remember, Kershaw's run as a starter is as dominant as I've ever seen in baseball over a multi-year span. What's he cashed about at 80%? If you've laid an average lay price of minus $4 with Kershaw over the last, 4 seasons, you've shown a profit. Dodgers don't hit. They still win for him last night. Can't beat Kershaw, man. It's unbelievable how much the Dodgers have been able to steal victories with their ace on the hill.
That team's in trouble. They can't hit, and the bullpen stinks again. That's something to watch. Yikes. All right, NHL win totals. The playoffs start Wednesday. Can't wait. These are just the biggest overachievers and underachievers. The Vegas Golden Knights, the biggest story in sports. An expansion team not only makes the playoffs, they win the division at 200-1, as high as 200-1 here in Vegas. They went over their points total by 41. They start the playoffs against the Kings at home Wednesday. Colorado, great turnaround after they were bad last year. They go over by 25. New Jersey by 22.5. Winnipeg by 22.5. And the Bruins lost yesterday, but still went over by 19.5. They take on the Maple Leafs. Biggest underachievers, the Canadiens, went under by 30.5. Buffalo by 26. What a disaster for the Oilers with McDavid. They should have won to the conference finals last year. They blew that series against Anaheim. They went under by 28 points, Chicago by 22.5, and Ottawa by 24.5. And right to the end, how sharp are the odds makers? These 3 totals came down to the final game. The Capitals were at 101. They get the over with the win to finish at 105 on Saturday. The Blues were 95. It was a win and in situation against Colorado Saturday. They lost. They stayed under by 1. And Vancouver, right on the nose, was 73. Also, the markets took a beating. The books took a beating, rather, Saturday in hockey. All the big moves got there with those teams that had to win and get in. As you saw, the Flyers, the Capitals, Nashville, Colorado, all those teams. Boston took money, significant money, and line movement, and they all won on Saturday. So the playoffs start Wednesday. Some interesting matchups coming up. Up next, big game breakdown. The Thunder and the Heat. Does anybody want the 6th seed in the East? And we'll get to Portland and Denver up next on SportsBit 2.0. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Make sure you follow us on Twitter. I'm at RealSportsBit. He's at Teddy_Covers. We tweet out the links to the show usually about 11:30 Pacific time. So follow us as well. And I put up a couple of picks once in a while too. Thanks to Intertop Sportsbook, 22 years online. Sign up, deposit, and win. Big game breakdown, OKC against Miami. Let's go through the only 3 days left in the regular season. This is bonkos. In the East, Miami is the 6th because of tiebreakers. They swept Milwaukee. They're 43-37. Likewise, the Bucks, and Washington's the 8 at 42-38. Head-to-head, Miami 3-0 against the Bucks. They split against the Wizards. Also, Miami with a better conference record. In the West, you got, look at this, Portland's 48-32. Utah's 47-33. Then you got the Pelicans, Spurs, and Thunder with all 34 losses. And then you have Minnesota and Denver tied for the 8, and they meet Wednesday. OKC, though, loses the tiebreaker against Minnesota and New Orleans. So this is a huge game tonight. OKC is 3 and 213.5 on the road. OKC win, and they're in. But the Heat are coming off an embarrassing loss against the Knicks. I don't know if these teams want the 6th seed, because either going to take on LeBron or the Sixers, who have won 14 in a row, as opposed to Boston without Kyrie or Smart.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of it is that I don't think there's a team at the bottom of the stand. Maybe the Wizards might want to take on the Cavs. It seems like they've matched up fairly well with Cleveland consistently. But, boy, you look at the way all 3 of these squads have been playing. Miami, Milwaukee, Milwaukee losing at home to Brooklyn. Miami blown out by the Knicks. Washington, they haven't played good ball since John Wall came back. Nobody's trying to move up to that 6th spot and claim it to play either Philly or Cleveland. The Celtics look more vulnerable. The Raptors, despite their playoff experience, there's still some questions there about Toronto. So you say, what do these teams want? What are they hoping to achieve? Miami might be hoping to achieve a loss tonight to move down in the standings, which is something we don't expect to see. Although the quotes don't really say that. That may be something that management is thinking or the coach is thinking. But from a player standpoint, I haven't seen any indication that the Miami Heat are worried about seeding more than they're worried about winning and snapping this relatively ugly, whatever. They played so bad against the Knicks. Yeah. It's hard to imagine them playing worse.
It's funny. It's funny you bring that up, because Jabari Parker said we don't really care about the seed either, because they respect Boston. As far as getting the 7, how well they played without Kyrie. And then Portland's got a big game we'll get to in a second. McCollum said, we're good, even though the 3 seed's on the line. Brewer filling the role of Robertson here. The big acquisition that they picked him up, and look at the defense, points per 100. Up to January 27th, it was 103.1. The January 27th through March 2nd, 108.4. And then March 3rd, current 105.9. The first one was up to the Robertson injury before Brewer added in the middle, and then with Brewer, the 104.9. Huge win Saturday as they beat the Rockets on the road, because, again, they could have missed the playoffs. They get a gimme Wednesday at home against Memphis. But they lose a lot of these tiebreakers. So they don't want to get the 7 or the 8. You want to avoid Houston or Golden State in the first round. That's why that when Saturday was so big, and why this game tonight is so important for the Thunder.
Sure, but they beat Houston on Saturday, despite the fact that the big 3, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, Paul George, combined a very, mediocre 23 of 59 from the floor in that ballgame. The trio did not shoot well, but the defense was there. The Rockets' intensity wasn't. 11 steals for OKC in that contest, and a lot of that is the ball pressure that Corey Brewer has been able to provide for this squad. So the quote from Carmelo after the game is that this win means nothing unless we can go and beat Miami on Monday. Certainly, OKC's talking the talk about playoff intensity over the last week of the campaign.
Yeah, nice win, but the Rockets had nothing to play for either. But now what do the Heat want to do? Toronto, you want to take on the Celtics, sitting there as the 6, 122-98. They lost Friday against New York. Spoelstra, I don't want to take anything away from what they did. They played a great game. Talking about the Knicks, the best way to say it across the board, we were a no-show. I recognized our team tonight compared to I hardly recognized our team tonight compared to what we've been and who we've been playing. James Johnson, quote, "That's not what we wanted. That's not Heat basketball. This is a time where everything should be sharp. I think we messed up on 8 or 9 defensive details that are just normally done. We can't take no time off." That's why it's a fascinating handicap tonight. Does Miami bounce back after the embarrassing showing? How do they look at it from a seeding standpoint? And it's a big one for the Thunder. The last thing you want is to face Golden State or Houston and get in that 7-8 because you lose some of these tiebreakers. And they're taking money, though, too. I think that globally, this open offshore, this open 1.5, nothing but Thunder money.
Yeah, well, I actually saw Pick'em at the very open for this,
Wow.
but this line was bet as high as 3.5. We've seen a little bit of buyback on Miami earlier this morning. And again, you read the Spoelstra quote. You read the James Johnson quote. There's another quote from Dwayne Wade saying, hey, we can't go into the playoffs playing like this. We stunk up the joint. So whether Miami's trying to tank or not, one would expect tank is not the right word. Whether Miami's trying to slip in the standings and whether management would prefer to have a lesser seed than a greater one, I don't know if I'm buying that. And Miami's A game, they can bang with OKC. Anyone can bang with OKC. The Thunder have proven to be rather vulnerable. I'm surprised at how much money has come in on OKC in early betting action on Monday.
And horrible ATS this year, the Thunder. All right, game number 2, Portland and Denver. Denver at home, 4.5, 219 the total. Huge game. Portland went to Texas with the big lead on the 3 seed. Then all hell broke loose. Lost at Dallas, lost at Houston, and lost at San Antonio. And no Harkless and Davis has been big, and Lillard didn't play in the loss against Houston. And here's the quote. McCollum wants his team to stay calm, even though the 3 seed's on the line here. We're good. If you told me that we have 48 wins and have 2 games left and a chance to finish in 3rd place, I told you we'll take it. Considering where we're at, there's no excuse for injuries and stuff like that. But I feel like we're headed in the right direction, heading to the playoffs. We should be fully healthy or close to fully healthy, and I think that makes a difference. They lose this one tonight, it'll come down to Wednesday for the 3 seed. Could decide. Utah's already in, and that'll determine the tiebreaker as well. The Jazz still they host the Warriors tomorrow night. But this wasn't even close a couple weeks ago. Remember, at one point, the Jazz were 9 games under 500. They could get the 3 seed.
Yeah, well, Utah's played tremendous basketball over the back half of the campaign. No question, a very different team with Rudy Gobert on and off the court. But we talk about Portland and Denver. These are 2 teams heading in opposite directions right now. I mean, I know that it's just a little swatch, but the Blazers are banged up. They're not worried about seeding necessarily. They just got slapped around losing all 3 games in Texas. Now they got to play in altitude against a Denver team that's really in good form. We look at Denver, their last 5 games, and hey, they've been tight, all right? The first 4, living by the skin of their teeth, hanging on for wins, had to rally from way behind against Milwaukee, but they win in overtime against OKC and win in overtime against the Bucks and get a 3-point win against the Pacers and a 4-point win against the T-Wolves and, tough, grinding victories. And then over the weekend, they had an easy one against the Clips. They blew them out really from the opening tip in that ball game, 134-115. Everything was falling for Denver in that ball game. That's a concern here. Not easy for shots to fall like that twice in a row. But, I mean, we know the Nuggets are a little bit shorthanded in the backcourt. Jamal Murray, almost 40 minutes in the game against the Clips. But the status of Gary Harris has been altered for tonight. This guy's been out for the last 11 games. Tonight, he's only doubtful. Doesn't mean he's going to play. It means he's getting better, and you may want to pay attention. If he does play, the markets are likely to react. Mike Malone on going 7-4 without Harris on the floor. Quote, "We're playing get-it-done basketball. We're getting it done." Our guys have really taken that to heart. There's a belief in that locker room, a lot of positivity. I think we're all in 100%. Believing in each other. You got to like what Denver's done over the last couple of weeks. I'm not convinced that it's going to end tonight either. We'll get back to this game when it comes to play of the daytime.
We'll get back to the Western Conference. We turn on the shot clock up next on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up on SportsBit. Huge week coming up. NBA and NHL playoffs start. And baseball still. Ohtani, unbelievable. Got a no-no into the 7th. And more home runs. He pitches later in the week, too. Time to turn the shot clock on. Which team misses the playoffs in a loaded Western Conference? For me, it's easy. The Nuggets. They could be out tonight. If Denver loses tonight and the Spurs and T-Wolves win, That's it. They're out of it. And if it comes down to the win and in situation Wednesday, I'll still take the T-Wolves at home. Butler's back, makes a big difference. I'll take the T-Wolves at home, and Denver has struggled on the road and to defend. Playing well down the stretch, but give me the T-Wolves at home, and the Nuggets will miss out on the playoffs.
I'm going to go another direction here. I'm going to say that it's Minnesota who is going to miss out on the playoffs. And Denver will sneak in by beating the T-Wolves this week in Minnesota. Why? Minnesota stunk up the joint, dude. This team has a grand total of 2 wins against playoff teams over the last 2 months. You know what those 2 wins were? They beat the Wizards without John Wall. They beat the Warriors without Steph Curry. That's it for 2 months. 2 playoff teams with both of them missing their best player. Nuh-uh. Minnesota's no good. Markets already know it. T-Wolves will be the 9 seed in the West. They miss out. Denver sneaks in.
Minnesota's good with Butler, and Butler's back. Changes everything defensively as well. I'll tell you who stinks is Wiggins. Oh, my God. I can't believe they gave that guy a max contract. Get the ball to Towns. Quit taking shots. Money time, play of the day. Back to Denver and Portland. What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's go with that. This is a real simple concept right here. It's a very reasonable point spread. We have a hot team against a not team. We have a healthy team that's finding ways to win against a banged-up team that's going through a rough road trip and looks a little bit gassed. Points worth laying. Play of the day, betting number 716, the Denver Nuggets, -4.5.
All right, very good. Fun show. Congrats if you had Reed and you may cast some matchups out there in the Masters prop. I'll tell you what, the Masters was crazy with the in-play wagering. God damn, is that fun. You see the huge swings just after one hole with the in-play wagering. Reed was still plus 350 going into Saturday, too. So that was great. And Spieth was, I think, 80 to 1, 80 to 1, 80 to 1, 60 to 1 going into Sunday. Although, 9 back, forget about it. All right, we'll talk to you then. Thanks for watching. We'll see you Tuesday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.